Hello, and welcome back to Haunted Drift Horror. Before we begin, feel free to leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I love reading every single one. If you enjoy drifting into haunted realms filled with pure horror, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Now, get comfortable. Dim the lights if you dare, relax your mind, let the outside world fade away, and let's begin. Story 1, my mom's funeral, finally ended just before sunset. The last relatives stood in the hallway for a long time, speaking in soft voices like they were afraid the house itself might hear them. They hugged me too tightly, told me how strong I was, told my dad to call if he needed anything, and said the same things people always say when they don't know what else to do. Then, one by one, they left. Their cars pulled away from the curb, their headlights sliding across the front windows before disappearing down the street. By midnight, the house had become unbearably quiet. It wasn't a normal kind of quiet. It wasn't the peaceful silence that comes late at night when everyone is sleeping. It was heavier than that. It was the kind of silence that settles into a home after someone dies, like the walls are holding their breath. Every small sound felt too loud. The hum of the fridge, the soft tick of the hallway clock, the little creak the floorboards made when the house shifted in the cold. Mom had been gone for 3 days. I was 19 years old, sitting alone in my bedroom with the lights off, staring at my phone and pretending I was doing something. I kept scrolling through old messages, random videos, anything that could keep my mind busy. But nothing worked. Every few seconds, my thoughts went back to her. Her voice, her laugh, the way she used to call my name from downstairs when dinner was ready, the way she would knock on my door even when it was already open, just because she said privacy mattered. Now, she was gone, and the house felt wrong without her. My dad was downstairs for most of the evening, moving from room to room without purpose. He had barely spoken since the funeral. He was an ER doctor, so I had seen him tired before. I had seen him come home after long shifts with red eyes and a stiff back, too worn out to even take off his shoes. But this was different. This was not work exhaustion. This was grief. It had emptied him out. My twin brother had gone to his room early. He said he was tired, but I knew he just wanted to be alone. We both handled pain differently. I went quiet. He disappeared into sleep, music, or rain sounds, anything that could cover the silence. I tried to do the same, but the silence kept pushing in. Then, I smelled it. Warm walnut and honey pastries. My breath caught in my throat. The smell drifted through the crack beneath my bedroom door, soft at first, then stronger. It was so familiar that for 1 second, my brain refused to understand it. Mom used to bake those pastries every winter. She made them when the weather turned cold, when frost gathered on the windows, when she said the house needed something sweet in it. She would fill the kitchen with the smell of warm dough, toasted walnuts, melted honey, and cinnamon. It was not the kind of smell you forgot. It made no sense. The kitchen had been empty all night. No one had cooked anything. No one had even opened the oven. Still, the scent grew stronger, wrapping around me like a memory. I could almost hear the walnuts crackling in the pan. I could almost hear my mom humming under her breath while she worked. She always hummed when she baked. Never a full song, just pieces of one, soft and broken, like she did not even know she was doing it. My eyes filled with tears before I could stop them. For a moment, I thought if I opened my bedroom door, I would see light coming from the kitchen. I thought I would find her standing there in her old house dress, wiping flour from her hands, smiling at me like nothing had happened. I knew that was impossible. But grief does strange things to your mind. Before I really knew what I was doing, I stood up, opened my bedroom door, and stepped into the dark hallway. The smell was even stronger out there. That was when I saw my dad near the front door, putting on his heavy coat. He looked up when he heard me. His face was pale, and there were dark shadows under his eyes. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 3 days. The hospital called, he said quietly. Emergency. I wanted to ask him not to go. I wanted to tell him I couldn't stay in this house without him. Not tonight. I wanted to tell him the house smelled like Mom's baking, and I was scared, and I didn't know why. But when I opened my mouth, nothing came out. He walked over and kissed the top of my head. "Keep an eye on your brother," he whispered. Then he left. A few moments later, I heard his car start outside. The headlights passed across the living room windows, then the engine faded down the street. After that, the house felt even emptier than before. I stood in the hallway for a while, listening. The smell of pastries was still there, but now it seemed to be fading. That made me feel worse somehow, like I had missed my only chance to follow it. I walked to my brother's room and gently pushed his door open. He was asleep on his side, one arm tucked under his pillow. His phone rested on the nightstand, playing one of those rain and forest tracks he always used to fall asleep. Soft rain, wind in trees, distant thunder. It filled the room just enough to make it feel less dead. For a second, I watched him breathe. He looked younger when he slept. We were twins, but grief had made us feel far apart, like we were standing on opposite sides of something neither of us knew how to cross. I quietly closed his door. Then I froze. My parents' bedroom door was cracked open just a few inches. In the dark gap, I thought I saw someone standing inside. Not moving, not breathing, just standing there, perfectly still, facing me. I couldn't see a face. I couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman. It was only a shape in the darkness, taller than the door handle, close enough to the opening that I knew it was looking out into the hall. My throat went dry. I told myself it was a coat hanging on the back of the door, or a shadow from the hallway window, or my tired mind making pictures out of grief and fear. But I knew what I saw. Someone was in there. I reached slowly for the hallway light switch. My fingers shook as I found it. I flicked it on. Light flooded the hallway. The doorway was empty. I stood there, staring at the gap. Nothing moved. Nothing made a sound. The smell of pastries was gone now, replaced by the faint, stale smell of funeral flowers from downstairs. I should have gone back to my room. I should have locked my door, called my dad, or woken my brother. But instead, I forced my feet to move. I pushed my parents' bedroom door open. The room looked normal. The bed was made because my aunt had made it earlier, even though no one had asked her to. My dad's side was neat. My mom's side looked untouched. The dresser stood against the wall with framed photos on top of it. There was one of my parents on their wedding day, one of my brother and me at 5 years old, both missing front teeth. One of Mom holding us as babies, smiling so hard her eyes were almost closed. I walked into the room slowly. The air felt colder than the hallway. I looked behind the door. Nothing. I looked near the curtains. Nothing. The room was empty. I felt stupid, but my heart was still pounding. To calm myself down, I opened my mom's closet. That was a mistake. The smell of her perfume was still heavy on her clothes. It came out all at once, soft and sweet and painfully familiar. It was the scent she wore every day, the scent that clung to her scarves and her sweaters, the scent I used to notice when she hugged me before school. It broke me. I pressed my face into one of her dresses and started crying. Not the quiet kind of crying I had done at the funeral, where everyone was watching and I felt like I had to hold myself together. This was ugly and breathless. My chest hurt. My knees felt weak. I gripped the fabric like I could pull her back through it if I held tight enough. I don't know how long I stood there. Maybe 1 minute. Maybe 10. Then my elbow hit something solid in the back corner of the closet. I pulled back and wiped my face with my sleeve. Behind a row of coats, hidden low near the wall, was a leather box. It was old, dark brown, and scratched along the edges. I had never seen it before. It looked like the kind of thing someone would use to store jewelry or private letters. There was a small metal lock on the front. Normally, I would have left it alone. But grief had already made the night strange. The smell of pastries, the shadow in the doorway, the heavy silence. And the truth was, I had not always been the daughter my parents thought they knew. During part of my teenage years, I had been angry, sneaky, and good at getting into places I was not supposed to get into. I pulled a metal hairpin from my hair. It took me about 3 minutes. Then the lock clicked open. The moment I lifted the lid, a chill moved through the room. It was not a normal draft. It felt like the air had dropped several degrees in one breath. The little hairs on my arms stood up. Inside the box was a small statue. At least, I thought it was a statue. It was badly damaged, cracked in several places, and so worn down by age that I could not tell what it was meant to be. The head was uneven. The body was twisted. There were marks where details had once been carved, but time had rubbed them almost smooth. Somehow, that made it worse. If it had been a clear figure, maybe I could have understood it. But it looked like something old and forgotten, something that should have stayed buried. Beside it were 2 baby pacifiers. They were yellowed with age, the plastic cloudy and stiff. Under them was an old photo of my brother and me as infants. We were lying side by side in the same crib, wrapped in matching blankets. Mom had written the date on the back, but nothing else. Beneath everything was an unlabeled VH tape. No sticker, no writing, nothing. I stared at it for a long time. My family still had an old TV with a built-in VCR in the living room. Dad never threw it away because he said old things worked better than new ones. Mom used to laugh at that. She said he only kept it because he hated learning how to use new technology. I should have put the tape back. Instead, I carried it downstairs. The living room was dark, except for the weak glow from the streetlight outside. Funeral flowers sat on the coffee table, their smell thick and sickly. I turned on a lamp, walked to the old TV, and pushed the tape into the slot. The machine made a tired, grinding sound. Static filled the screen. Then the image flickered on. At first, I saw only darkness and movement. Then the picture cleared enough for me to understand what I was watching. It was our house. The camera was moving through the hallway at night. My mom was holding it. I knew it was her because I could hear her breathing softly behind the camera. Then she started humming, the same kind of quiet, broken humming I remembered from the kitchen. She sounded calm, happy, Even the video must have been old, because the hallway looked different. The wallpaper was the one from when we were babies, pale blue with tiny flowers. I had only seen it in family photos. Mom walked slowly down the hall, holding the camera steady. She reached her bedroom door and pushed it open. My dad was asleep in bed. He looked much younger. His hair was darker, his face smoother. He was lying on his back, one hand resting on his chest. Mom walked up to him and lowered the camera slightly. For a moment, the screen showed only the edge of the bed and the shape of his sleeping face. She leaned down and kissed his forehead. "Sleep well, my dear husband," she whispered. The way she said it made my skin crawl. It was gentle, but too formal, like she was acting in a play, like the words were not really hers. She watched him for a few seconds. Then she left the room. The camera turned back to the hallway and moved toward the nursery. I sat up straighter. My hands were cold. The nursery door opened. Inside, the room was dark except for a soft nightlight near the wall. There was one large crib in the center of the room. My brother and I were asleep inside it, side by side, just like in the photo from the box. Mom sat down beside the crib and pointed the camera down at our faces. Her free hand reached into the frame and gently pulled the blanket higher over us. "My little angels," she whispered, "you are so beautiful." She stayed there for a few seconds, just watching us. Then she started singing. Her voice was soft and sweet, the same voice that had sung to us when we were sick, scared, or too restless to sleep. But the words were wrong. Sleep now, the evening's here, and shadows fill the room. Pan walks softly by your bed beneath the silver moon. The night whispers sweet to a mother's desire, while Pan plays his pipe by a flickering fire. Little ones, don't be afraid. His tall horn watches tight. Pan's crimson eye guards your dreams until the morning light. Sleep now, for the wind has come to steal the candles bright. She stopped singing. For a moment, there was only the soft hiss of the tape. Then her hand came into view again. She stroked my cheek with one finger. I felt my own cheek tingle as I watched it, like some part of me remembered. Then Mom looked past the camera, toward the darker corner of the nursery. "Thank you, Pan," she whispered. A cold wave of fear moved through me. I did not know who Pan was. I knew the name from old stories, maybe some kind of forest god or creature with horns, but I had never heard my mother say it before. I had never heard anyone in my family talk about it. And the way she thanked him made it sound like someone was in that room with her, someone standing just outside the camera's view. The tape went silent, not quiet. Silent, even the hiss seemed to vanish. A few seconds passed. Then a hand reached out from the shadow behind the crib. It was huge. It came slowly into the nightlight, one finger at a time. The skin was dark and rough, almost gray in the poor light. Thick black hair covered the back of it and crawled up the wrist. The fingers were too long. The nails were too dark. It did not look like a human hand. It moved toward the crib. I stopped breathing. The hand reached through the bars and slowly brushed across my brother's tiny hand. That was enough. I jumped up so fast my chair fell backward and slammed onto the floor. The sound cracked through the living room. I rushed to the TV and hit the power button with the heel of my hand. The screen went black. The room fell into total silence. I stood there, bent forward, breathing hard, one hand still pressed against the TV. My heart was beating so fast, it hurt. I stared into the dark glass of the screen, trying to understand what I had just seen. For a few seconds, I only saw my own reflection, my pale face, my wide eyes, the dark living room behind me. Then I saw someone standing a few feet behind me. I froze. In the reflection, she was clear. It was my mom. She stood in the middle of the living room wearing her old house dress, the one with the tiny flowers on it. Her hands were folded neatly in front of her. Her hair looked the way it always had in the mornings, loose around her face. She was smiling. It was the same soft smile she used to give me when I woke up from a nightmare as a child. The smile that told me I was safe. The smile that made every bad thing feel far away. For one painful second, I wanted to turn around and run into her arms. Then her smile stretched wider, too wide. The corners of her mouth pulled farther than they should have, slow and silent, until the smile no longer looked kind. It looked hungry. It looked like something, wearing my mother's face, had finally learned how to use it. And for the first time in my life, I wished I had not seen her. Story 2. When you hear the word rock, you probably think of those small gray pieces of earth you used to kick along the sidewalk on your way home. Maybe you think of a bigger stone, the kind you might use to hold a door open or hide a spare house key under. Maybe your mind goes even bigger to heavy boulders, like the one Sisyphus was cursed to push forever in that old myth. But there is another kind of rock, too. A rock can be something that keeps you steady, something that keeps your mind from breaking, something you lean on when life gets too heavy. Without that kind of rock, you can start to slip. You can lose your grip on yourself. You can go a little crazy. Maybe you can lose your mind completely. My wife used to call me her rock. She is gone now. I have my own rock, a real one. At least it looks like a rock. It is small, more like a pebble than anything else. But just having it near me makes the world feel right. When I do not have it, everything feels wrong. My skin feels too tight. My head feels full of noise. I know that does not sound normal, but normal stopped meaning anything to me a long time ago. I remember the day I first found it. I was in the park, working a case. I like saying it that way because it makes me sound like a real detective, not just some man hiding behind trees and taking photos of people cheating on their spouses. But that is what most of my work is. People come to me because they already know the truth. They just want proof. They want a photo, a video, something they can hold up in court or shove in someone's face during an argument. The woman I had been following that day was cheating. That was no surprise. My client was old, rich, and mean. He had money, and that was the only reason anyone like her had married him in the first place. She was his third wife. He told me he wanted proof before she could take half of everything from him. He said she had been fun while it lasted. But now he was ready to throw her back where he found her. His words, not mine. He was a terrible man. But his money was real. And I needed to pay bills. So I hid near the bushes and took pictures of his wife with some good-looking younger guy. They were not even trying to be careful. They kissed in the open, touched each other like nobody else existed, and laughed like the world belonged to them. After I got enough photos, I stepped out from behind the bushes, and I started walking back toward my car. That was when I felt it, under my shoe. Something small, hard, and round pressed against the bottom of my sneaker. I moved my foot and looked down. There it was, the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. A little gray pebble. I do not know why it looked beautiful. It was just a rock. It should have been nothing. But the moment I saw it, something in me pulled tight. I bent down and picked it up before I even understood what I was doing. It fit perfectly in my palm. Its edges were smooth and round, like water had spent 1,000 years shaping it. It felt warm and cold at the same time, gentle and sharp, heavy and light. I turned it between my fingers, and I swear I felt it hum. Not in my ears, but deep in my bones. Then fear hit me so hard that I dropped it. The pebble landed in the dirt with a soft little thud. I stared at it, breathing too fast. Something about it was wrong. No, that was not exactly it. Everything about it was right. Too right. And that made it wrong. I could not keep looking at it. I kicked dirt over it until it disappeared. After that, I felt dizzy. It was like one of my bad hangovers, the kind I got after a long night of cheap liquor. My brain felt loose inside my skull. My hand went to the right side of my face, rubbing the rough stubble there. I hurried to my car and left the stone behind. I tried to forget about it. When I got home, I plugged the camera's memory card into my printer and let the photos come out. Then I went through the paperwork I had collected for the case. Bank records, social media posts, addresses, schedules, all of it organized into a neat little package for my client. I hoped the work would settle my mind. If it did not, the bottle of whiskey on the kitchen counter would. The photos came out one by one. I had some very clear shots. The wife and her young lover kissing. His hand under her shirt. Her leaning into him like she had forgotten she had a husband at all. I shook my head while looking through them, thinking how stupid people could be. Then I saw it again. The pebble. I did not remember taking that picture. I knew I had not meant to. But there it was, centered in the frame, a perfect little gray circle resting in the dirt. The moment I saw it, the small tapping in my head turned into a pounding drum. Sweat broke across my palms. My chest tightened. My heart felt like it was choking itself. I was having a panic attack. I knew that. I had felt them before, mostly after my wife left. I stumbled to the counter, grabbed the bottle of cheap scotch, and poured some into a glass. I drank it all at once. The burn spread through my stomach, familiar and cruel, and for a few seconds it pushed the panic back. I poured another drink, then another. After that, I ripped the photo into pieces. I had to. There was something wrong with it. Something wrong with the rock. Back then, I did not understand how lucky I had been. I should have gone back for it the moment I saw that photo. Maybe things would have been easier. Maybe not. Maybe nothing could have saved me after I first touched it. I spent the rest of that night drinking. I probably would have done that anyway, but at least now I had a new excuse. Drinking had taken my wife away from me, but it was also the only thing I had left. The next day, I gave the file to my client. He looked through the photos with a smile that made my stomach turn. "That woman will never know what hit her," he said. I did not answer. I took the money and left. As far as I was concerned, Mrs. Third Wife was no longer my problem. But something else was digging at the back of my mind. I needed another job fast. I needed to keep busy before my thoughts got even worse. I kept asking myself why I could not stop thinking about a stupid pebble. I found a job online after 10 minutes of searching. It sounded strange right away. Some landlord wanted photos of his tenant's apartment. He claimed she kept damaging the place and blaming it on accidents. He said repairmen had been sent over again and again to fix holes in the walls. He also said the handles on her drawers were always broken when he checked the apartment, and he wanted pictures of those too. He said I should get any angle I needed. It sounded like an excuse. I had met men like him before. He probably wanted pictures of her clothes or her underwear. But I needed work. More than that, I needed something to keep my hands busy and my mind away from the rock. So I drove to the property. The landlord told me where the spare key was hidden. I let myself in and moved through the apartment quietly. It was clean enough. A little dusty, maybe, but not destroyed. I checked the walls. No holes. I checked the bedroom drawers. The handles were fine. Nothing looked broken at all. I took a few pictures anyway. I was ready to leave when my chest tightened. The feeling came from the dresser. Not the whole dresser. One drawer. The second one from the top. I stood there staring at it. I could feel something inside. Not hear it. Feel it. Like a pulse. Like the drawer was calling me. I want to be clear about this. I am not that kind of man. I do not go through women's clothes for pleasure. I do not steal underwear or sniff shirts or any of that sick garbage. But in that moment, I needed to open that drawer. The feeling of wrongness was so strong and my hangover was so bad that I was not thinking clearly. I pulled the handle. Locked. I cursed under my breath and stepped back. I felt awful, and I told myself it was time to get out of there. I still needed pictures of the tenant when she got home, so I left the apartment, went back to my car, and parked where I could see into the bedroom window. From there, I had a clear view of the dresser. Then, I waited. Hours passed. My stomach growled. I needed to use the bathroom. I was just about to decide whether to run behind the bushes when a car pulled into the driveway. A woman got out. She was tall, blonde, and beautiful in that tired, rough way some people get after too many late nights. She stumbled toward the door. I knew that walk. I had walked that way plenty of times. I got behind the camera and watched her enter the bedroom. I took one picture as she came in. She looked like she was about to fall straight into bed, but before she reached it, her whole body went stiff. Then she snapped around toward the dresser. I took another photo. She lunged at the second drawer from the top and grabbed the handle with both hands. She pulled. Then she pulled harder. Her face twisted with panic. She yanked again and again until the handle broke off in her hands. Then she stared at the broken piece and started crying. Not normal crying. Ugly, helpless crying. The kind that comes from deep inside when a person has no pride left. She turned toward the door and began slamming her head into it. Once, twice, again and again. I watched through the zoom lens, frozen, as the wood splintered. She hit it until a hole opened in the door. Then she stopped. She stumbled back to the bed and dropped onto it without changing clothes. I took a few more photos, though my hands were shaking by then. Then I started my car and drove home. That was enough for one day. I did not sleep well that night. The liquor did not help the way it usually did. It could not hide the pain in my head or the crawling feeling under my skin. The landlord called me the next morning. There's another hole in my property. He snapped, and the handle is still broken. Tell me you got something I can use to kick her out. No, I lied. I need another day. What am I paying you for? Hurry up. I can't take this anymore. I hung up with my head pounding. I do not know why I lied. I had photos. He could have used them. But I knew I had to get inside that apartment again. I had to know what was in that drawer. The small voice in my head, the one the alcohol could not drown, kept telling me to go back. So I did. I drove like a madman, cutting through traffic, gripping the wheel so hard my hands hurt. This time I brought a crowbar. As soon as I got inside, I went straight to the bedroom. The broken handle was still there. I shoved the crowbar into the space and pulled. The wood cracked. The drawer jerked open. I looked inside, and there it was, my rock. For one perfect second, everything in me went still. Then my vision blurred. No, it was not my rock. It looked like mine. Same size, same smooth gray curve, same strange beauty. But I could feel the difference. It belonged to someone else. A ringing sound filled my ears. My stomach rolled. I grabbed the top of the dresser to keep from falling. Then the front door opened. The tenant was home. I heard small footsteps moving through the apartment. I tried to shove the drawer closed, but it would not stay shut. I must have broken something when I forced it open. I looked around, desperate for a way out. The window. I ran to it and pulled. Locked, I fumbled with the blinds, found the latch, forced it open, and pushed the window up. Then I heard her behind me. She stood in the doorway, staring at me. There was a look in her eyes that I knew too well. I had seen it in my own mirror every day since my wife left. Fear, need, shame, hunger. She moved past me and went straight to the dresser. For a second, she hesitated. Then she reached into the drawer and pulled out the rock. Her rock. I knew it from the way she held it. She cradled it in both hands and rubbed it against her cheek like it was the only thing in the world that loved her. I felt something rise in me then. Jealousy, maybe, or grief. I wanted to hold my rock that way. I wanted to feel whole. Then she lifted the rock above her face. Her eyes were wet. Her mouth opened wide. I wanted to tell her to stop. I wanted to move, but I did nothing. She looked at me one last time. Her eyes begged for help. Then she pushed the rock into her mouth. She forced it down her throat, farther than should have been possible. Her hand followed it in, disappearing into her mouth up to the wrist. She gagged. Her body shook. Tears streamed from her closed eyes. I could hear wet choking sounds as she pushed harder. Then she went still. Slowly, she pulled her arm back out. The rock was gone. She fell to the floor. I stood there, breathing hard, unable to understand what I had just seen. My camera was still in the car. Some stupid part of me wondered if the landlord would want pictures of this too. Then her stomach moved. It swelled under her shirt. Her eyes rolled back, and a peaceful look spread across her face. She looked happy, truly happy, like nothing in the world could hurt her anymore. It made me think of my wife before everything went wrong, before that night, before the drinking and the screaming and the silence between us. There had been a time when we were happy too, when being together was enough. Then the woman's stomach kept growing. It stretched. Then it burst. Blood hit the walls, the bed, the floor, and me. I doubled over and vomited. I thought I had seen ugly things before. I thought my work had hardened me. But nothing prepares you for watching a person come apart in front of you. When I looked up, someone else was in the room. Something else. It was thin, wet, and gray. It stood over the woman's body with its back to me. Its arms were too long. Its skin looked slick, like it had just crawled out of a drain. I began moving slowly toward the window, trying not to make a sound. The crowbar was still near the dresser, but I was too scared to reach for it. The thing bent over the body. Then I heard it eating. I heard chewing, wet tearing, bones cracking, blood being swallowed. I could not stop myself. Oh God, I gasped. The thing turned. Its face was not right. It had a mouth, but it was too wide. Its eyes were small and dark and empty. It dropped low and crawled toward me, then rose on shaking legs like a child learning to walk. I backed into the wall. It lunged. I threw myself to the floor and slipped in the blood. The thing struck the wall where my head had been, leaving a wet red mark behind. I scrambled backward on my hands and feet. My fingers touched cold metal. The crowbar. I grabbed it with both hands and stood. The creature lurched again. I closed my eyes and swung. The crowbar hit the side of its head. Something wet sprayed across my face. The creature fell with a heavy thud and lay there wheezing, dark fluid spilling from its mouth. I did not wait to see if it was dead. I climbed out the window and ran to my car. I looked back only once. The thing was rising again, slow and unsteady, stretching to its full height. Then I drove. I should have called the police. I should have called the news. I should have checked myself into a hospital or found a therapist or done anything a sane man would do. But only one thought filled my mind. I had to get my rock. I had just seen what those rocks could do. I knew what they wanted. I knew what might happen if I found mine. But knowing did not matter. The need was too strong. It wrapped around my thoughts and squeezed until nothing else could get through. I needed it. I needed my rock. The landlord called while I was speeding back toward the park. I answered and told him to keep his money, call the cops, and stay away from that apartment. "I'm leaving you a bad review," he shouted. "You wasted my time." I almost laughed. "You're going to need a new tenant," I told him. "That's all I can say." Then I ended the call and drove faster. I reached the park and left my car badly parked near the curb. I did not care. I ran to the bushes where I had hidden the day before and searched the ground. I looked everywhere, but I could not find it. Then I remembered. I had buried it. Stupid, stupid, why had I done that? I had no shovel, so I grabbed the crowbar from the car and started digging through the dirt with it. People walked past and stared. Some slowed down. I heard someone ask if everything was okay. I ignored them. My pants were covered in soil. Sweat ran down my face. I dug and dug until my arms shook. Then I saw it. My rock. But it was not in the dirt. It was in a child's hand. A little boy stood nearby, tossing it into the air and catching it again. His mother stood a few steps away, telling him to stop playing with dirty things from the ground. But the boy did not listen. He stared at the rock with the same empty need I had felt. She did not understand. I did. I walked toward him fast. The crowbar was still in my right hand. "Give me my rock," I said. The boy froze. His mother turned. "Get away from him." I grabbed the boy with my left hand. "Give it to me." The boy looked up at me, and I saw something hard in his eyes. Something wild and stubborn. "It's mine," he said. No, it was not. I am not proud of what happened next. No one could be. I could blame the rock. I could say it controlled me. I could say this was something happening to people everywhere, that I was only one of many. I could blame whoever made those rocks or whatever had placed them in our world. But blame does not make guilt lighter. I pulled my arm back and swung the crowbar. It hit the boy's head with a sick crack, and he dropped to the ground. His mother screamed. She hit my back with her fists, begging me to stop. I shoved her away and swung again. The boy's skull dented, but his hand stayed closed around the rock. I hit him again. Still, He held on. I hit him again, thinking of the gray thing from the apartment, the wet creature that had crawled out of the woman after she swallowed her rock. I imagined I was killing that thing before it could be born from mine. Another blow, and the rock finally rolled from the boy's fingers. I dropped the crowbar and dove for it. At last, I had it. That perfect little gray sphere. That soft pulse. The pain in my head began to fade. I held it up close to my face, ready to feel whole again. Then I noticed something. The shape was right. The feel was right. The warmth and cold were there. But it was not mine. It was not my rock. The ringing in my head came back so loud that it swallowed the mother screaming. The boy's rock sat heavy in my hand. I looked down at what I had done, and something inside me broke. I remembered the other child, the one from that night. The night my life ended, even though I kept breathing. He had been riding his bike on the highway. He should not have been there so late. He should have had a light. He should have stayed off that road. But I should not have been drunk. My wife had screamed from the passenger seat when I hit him. The car stopped. The boy's body lay twisted near the front of the vehicle, barely visible in the headlights. Neither of us moved for a long moment. Then we left. The next day, we saw it on the news. A hit and run. A dead child. Police asking for information. They never found out who did it. No one ever would. But we knew, and it destroyed us. I backed away from the boy in the park, from his mother, from the blood, from the rock that was not mine. Then I ran to my car. I drove home and locked myself inside. I waited for the police to come. I waited for sirens, shouting, pounding on the door. They never came. By then, people everywhere were starting to find their rocks. I still hope I find mine. Story 3. At 6 in the morning on June 12th, I was ready. The sky outside my bedroom window was clear and pale blue, with the first thin line of sunlight rising over the roofs across the street. It looked like the start of a normal summer day. Birds were singing. The pool in our backyard was glowing with soft morning light. The cherry blossom tree beside it moved gently in the breeze. But nothing about that day was normal. There was 1 hour left until the joining. My prom dress was still hanging over my bedroom door. It was white with a silver sequin top that caught the sunlight whenever I moved. My mom had picked it out herself. She had stood behind me in the store weeks earlier, smiling at our reflection in the dressing room mirror, telling me how beautiful I looked. She said prom would help me feel normal again. She said I deserved one last happy night before the world became better. Better, that was the word everyone kept using. The joining was supposed to make the world better. The new law was supposed to protect women. That was what they said on every news channel, every government live stream, every school announcement, every post that had not yet been removed. They said all men would be joined into one perfect mind, one shared voice, one calm, peaceful, controlled system. No more male violence, no more fear, no more girls walking home with keys between their fingers, no more women checking the back seat before getting into their cars, no more bruises hidden under sleeves, no more boys growing up angry and dangerous. That was what they promised. My mom believed every word of it. She said I would finally feel safe. She said I would stop hating myself. She said I would stop wanting approval from people who had been raised to hurt me. She said the new world would heal something inside me. But I had a 16-year-old brother who had taken his own life 1 week before the joining. His name was Harry. He was not violent. He was not cruel. He was not some threat hiding under our roof. He was a skinny kid who played video games too loudly, left cereal bowls in the sink, and laughed at jokes that were not even funny. He had freckles on his nose and a habit of wearing the same hoodie for 3 days in a row. He used to fall asleep on the couch with his controller still in his hand. And now he was buried under Mom's cherry blossom tree beside the pool. Cities were burning by then. Men and boys were panicking. Some were running. Some were begging. Some were hurting other people before the deadline, because that is what scared people do when they feel trapped and blamed. Women were being killed. Children were being attacked. Streets that used to be full of cars were full of smoke and sirens. The government kept saying it was proof that the joining was needed. Not all men, people whispered, but the words did not matter anymore. The law had already passed. The countdown had already started. Instead of fixing what was broken, instead of teaching boys to grow into better men, the world had decided to erase them into one thing and call it peace. There were 20 minutes left. I packed my bag with the things I needed: water, food, cash, a change of clothes, a map, my father's gun. Then I took the prom dress off the door. My hands shook as I carried it downstairs. The house was quiet. My mom was probably in her room, praying or crying or pretending she was proud of what was coming. I did not call out to her. I did not want a final argument. I did not want her to tell me this was for the best. I did not want to hear her say Harry would have understood. He would not have. On my way to the car, I stopped beside the pool and dumped the contents of my trash can into the water. Papers, tissues, old notes, the white dress, all of it splashed into the bright blue. The silver sequins shimmered for a moment under the surface before the fabric began to sink. I pulled out my phone and opened TikTok one last time. It was no longer dances or makeup tutorials or prom videos. It was nothing but fear. Boys crying into their cameras, mothers screaming at government buildings, men begging for appeals from different countries, women arguing in comment sections, people filming fires from apartment windows, people saying goodbye. I deleted the app. Then I sent one final text. I'm ready. After that, I threw the phone into the pool too. It hit the water with a small sound and sank slowly beneath the sunlight. Harry's grave was a few feet away under the cherry blossom tree. The dirt was still too fresh. The flowers people had left were already rotting in the heat. I walked over and placed his PS5 on top of them. It was stupid. It was heavy and expensive and completely useless to him now. But I remembered a vacation years ago when he had sat by a hotel pool with a towel over his head, playing on his Switch like the world could end and he would not notice. If I ever die, he had mumbled from under the towel, "Can you bury me with my PS5? At the time, I had laughed and told him he was dramatic. Now I knelt in the grass and pressed my hand against the box. "Goodbye, Harry," I whispered. My throat closed around his name. That was when I heard someone behind me. "Hey," I turned. Noah stood at the edge of the patio. For a second, my whole body went weak with relief. He was here. He had come. We were still doing it. We were still running. Noah stepped toward me and gently took my hands. Then he pulled me into a hug. I let myself fall into him. I let myself hold him the way I had wanted to hold him for years. My face pressed against his chest, and everything inside me broke open for one last second. I could smell laundry soap on his shirt. I could feel his heart beating too fast. Then I pulled away. and something inside me went cold. He was wearing white, a plain white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, white pants, white sneakers so clean they looked untouched by the world. Not a tux, not the dark jacket he was supposed to wear to prom, not the clothes he was supposed to run in, ceremonial clothes. I stumbled back from him. There were 5 minutes left until the joining. "Where's your bag?" I asked, but my voice came out broken. Noah looked down at his shoes. "We were supposed to run," I said. "That's what we promised." He did not answer right away. "Noah," I said, louder this time, "where is your bag?" "I'm not going," he whispered. The words hit me harder than any scream could have. His face twisted as he tried not to cry. "My mom said if I don't join, she'll hurt herself in front of me." I stared at him. "She said it's for the best," he continued. His voice cracked. A tear slipped down his cheek. "She said I have to be brave. She said I have to stop being selfish." He tried to smile, but it fell apart before it reached his eyes. He was shaking. Then he turned away from me and sat down at the edge of the pool. He lowered his feet toward the water, his clean shoes hanging just above the blue surface. "Let's just sit," he said. Sunlight touched his hair and made it look almost gold. It was such a normal, beautiful thing that I hated it. I hated the pool. I hated the sky. I hated the soft pink flowers falling from the cherry blossom tree over my brother's grave. Noah looked at me and smiled. "It'll be okay," he said. I wanted to slap him. I wanted to drag him to my car. I wanted to scream until the windows broke. Instead, I walked over and sat beside him. 3 minutes left. "But promise me something," Noah said. I looked at him. His eyes were on the water. "I don't want to fall in love with you," he said. The world seemed to stop around us. I had loved Noah since freshman year. Since the day he spilled his lunch all over my Adventure Time sweatshirt and stared at me with a round, embarrassed face covered in freckles. Since the day he tried to clean it with napkins and somehow made it worse. Since the day he laughed so hard at his own apology that I laughed too. I had held it inside me for years. And he knew. Of course he knew. He had always known. Noah swallowed hard. "Don't date me," he whispered. "Don't make me propose. And please," his breath shook, "please don't marry me." I could already feel the countdown in the air. It was like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. Somewhere, a dog barked and then went silent. I wanted to take his hand. I wanted to tell him I loved him. I wanted to tell him he was wrong about everything. I wanted to tell him that maybe Kaz had been a phase, even though I knew that was cruel. Kaz, the quiet swimmer from our school, the one with sharp shoulders and shy eyes. The one who could make Noah blush just by looking at him. The one Noah was supposed to go to prom with. Kaz, who had been killed by his own father because he liked boys. Noah let out a sob. I did not look at him. Because if I looked at him, I would feel guilty. "Please," he said through clenched teeth, "don't marry me." I said nothing. Because this was the moment. Wasn't it? The last moment. The moment where a good person would tell the truth. The moment where I should have said I loved him, but would still let him go. The moment where I should have promised him that no matter what happened after the joining, I would remember what he wanted. But I did not speak. Not until his body seized. His back arched suddenly, and his shoes splashed into the water. I caught him before he fell into the pool. His body jerked hard in my arms, his head snapping back, his mouth open like he was trying to breathe underwater. A thin line of red slipped down his chin. All across the neighborhood, screams began. The joining had started. It was violent and peaceful at the same time. That was the worst part. Noah's body fought it, but his face slowly relaxed. His hands stopped clawing at my arms. His breathing evened out. The fear left his eyes. "Noah," I whispered. His eyes opened. His pupils were huge. Then he smiled. It was wide and bright and wrong. I knew the boy in my arms was still Noah. His face was Noah. His hands were Noah. His hair was Noah. But something behind his eyes had changed. Something else was looking through him now. Something huge. Something made from every man who had just been pulled into one shared mind. I should have been scared. I should have run. Instead, my heart lifted. Because now, he could not reject me. He could not push me away. He could not laugh awkwardly and say, "You know we're just friends, right?" He could not tell me that he loved Cass. He could not tell me that I was not what he wanted. So I finally said it. "I love you," I whispered. "I've always loved you, Noah." His smile grew. "We love you, Bonnie," he said. "We." That was the first word that should have warned me. But I ignored it. I said it again 2 years later, when we were 20 and walking barefoot on a beach. The sun was low, turning the water orange and pink. Noah held my hand like he had never wanted anything else. He laughed at all my jokes. He watched me like I was the center of every world. "You want to propose to me, right?" I whispered. Noah dropped to one knee in the sand without hesitation. "Of course we do," he said. People nearby clapped. I cried. He slipped the ring onto my finger, and I told myself this was happiness. I told myself this was love. I told myself the old Noah had only been afraid. I told myself the joining had taken away the confusion and pain and left behind the truest version of him. We married under cherry blossom trees. My mother cried during the ceremony and told me the world had finally become safe. Noah smiled. He laughed. He spun me around under falling petals while our guests cheered. For years, I lived inside that happiness like it was a warm house with locked doors. Noah was gentle. Noah was patient. Noah never argued for long. Noah remembered anniversaries, favorite songs, the exact way I liked my coffee. He listened when I spoke. He held me when I cried. He never looked at anyone else the way he looked at me. Sometimes, very rarely, I would catch something strange in his face. A flicker, a pause, a tiny delay before he answered a question, but I always looked away from it. Everyone said joined men were like that sometimes. Their minds were connected to something larger. Their thoughts moved differently. It was normal. Safe, better. I told him I loved him on his 28th birthday. We were sitting cross-legged in bed, looking through old photos. Rain tapped softly against the bedroom window. Noah had a blanket around his shoulders, and I had a pile of pictures spread across my lap. I found one of him at 12 years old, round-faced and awkward, with messy hair and a crooked smile. "Oh my God," I said, laughing, "look how cute you were." I held the photo out to him. He took it and chuckled softly. Then his head dropped hard against his chest. At first, I thought he had fainted. "Noah?" His body jerked. Once, twice, the photo slipped from his fingers. His eyes rolled back, and his lips trembled. Blood gathered at the corner of his mouth. "Noah?" I said again, louder. His body went still. Then he whispered something. "Please." The word was so small, I almost did not hear it. I froze. His voice came again, broken and strangled. please." Then Noah shot to his feet. He swayed beside the bed, eyes flickering wildly. They were too clear, too awake, too alive. His hands flew to his hair, and he pulled at it like he was trying to tear himself out of his own skull. "Please, please, please," he gasped. "Please, please, please, fucking please." I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and called the emergency line to report a disconnection. That was what we had been trained to do. If a joined man showed signs of separation, confusion, or individual distress, report it at once. But Noah was screaming over my voice. He stumbled into the bathroom, fell to his knees, and broke. I stood in the doorway with the phone pressed to my ear. He looked up at me. And for the first time in 10 years, I saw him. Not we. Him, the boy by the pool. The boy in white shoes. The boy who had begged me not to love him this way. His eyes filled with horror. "Tell me you didn't marry me," he sobbed. Story 4. I do not know where else to go with this. I do not know who else will believe me. By the time you finish reading this, I might already be dead. Or worse, I might be whatever they turn people into when they are done with them. Right now, the only thing standing between me and those things outside is the cheap plywood door to my apartment. And that door is not as strong as I used to think it was. I never thought this was how my life would end. Not because of a crime, not because of some monster in the woods, not because I opened a cursed box or moved into a haunted house. No, if I die tonight, it will be because I was stupid enough to break rules on Reddit. I know how that sounds. I know it sounds ridiculous. A few days ago, I would have laughed at someone if they told me this story. I would have thought they were making it up for attention. But I am not laughing now. My hands are shaking so badly that I can barely type. The worst part is that I should have known better. The rules were right there. They were not hidden. They were not written in some secret code. I just did not read them properly because I was new, and I thought it did not matter that much. I thought online rules were just little warnings people put up to keep things organized. I did not know those rules were serious. I did not know they were treated like laws. I definitely did not know that breaking them could bring something to my door. It started with a post. That was all. I had written a horror story and wanted to share it. I was excited, honestly. I had spent a few nights working on it, and even though it was not perfect, I thought people might enjoy it. I posted it, waited a few minutes, refreshed the page, and saw that it had been removed. No warning. No clear reason. It was just gone. I figured maybe I had made some small mistake. Maybe the title was wrong, or maybe I used the wrong tag. I did not think it was a big deal. So I changed a few words and posted it again. That one disappeared too. At that point, I was annoyed, but still not scared. I thought maybe Reddit was glitchy. Maybe the site was broken. Maybe the post was getting caught in some filter. I had no idea that I had already been banned. I had no idea that posting again after something had been removed was another mistake. I did not know that posting twice within 24 hours was against the rules. I did not know anything, and that was the beginning of everything. I sent a message to the moderators. I tried to sound polite. I told them I was new and that I did not understand what I had done wrong. I asked why my posts kept getting removed and what I could do to fix it. I remember typing the message carefully because I did not want to sound rude. I thought if I explained myself, they would tell me what happened, maybe warn me, maybe let me try again later. I hit send, then waited. and waited and waited. For 3 hours, nothing happened. I checked my phone every few minutes like an idiot. I went from angry to nervous to embarrassed, and then back to angry again. I told myself they were probably busy. I told myself moderators had lives too, even if people online liked to pretend they didn't. I tried to distract myself with videos, food, and random scrolling, but I kept thinking about the message. Then my phone finally buzzed. It was a Reddit notification. Mod mail. My stomach tightened when I opened it. I do not know what I expected. Maybe a long explanation. Maybe a cold little message saying, read the rules. Maybe even a permanent ban notice. What I got was worse. The message was short. There was no greeting, no explanation, and no help. It said, we will find you, rule breaker. I stared at those words for a long time. At first, I honestly thought it was a joke. A weird joke, sure, but still a joke. People online say strange things all the time. Maybe the mods were trying to scare new users. Maybe it was some kind of role play thing because it was a horror community. That had to be it. That was the only thing that made sense. So I responded. I asked what they meant. I said I did not understand. I asked again what rule I had broken. Their answer came almost instantly. You have broken 7 of our 10 commandments. You will be found. That was when the joke stopped feeling funny. I did not reply after that. I just closed the app and sat there with my phone in my hand, staring at nothing. 7 of 10 commandments? What did that even mean? I had only tried to post a story. I had not harassed anyone. I had not stolen anything. I had not done anything that felt worth this kind of response. I tried to push it out of my head because I had worked later that day. I work at McDonald's, and my shift started in the afternoon. By the time I got there, the place was already busy. The kind of busy where the line never ends and the beeping from the machine starts to feel like it is inside your skull. People came in nonstop. Families, teenagers, tired workers, people grabbing food before going home. I took order after order until everything became a blur of fries, drinks, nuggets, and angry customers. For a while, the messages almost left my mind. Almost, then I noticed the person in the back booth. I call them a person because I do not know what else to call them, but even then, something felt off. They had been sitting there for a long time. I did not remember them ordering anything. I did not remember seeing food on their table. They were just sitting, alone in the booth at the far end of the dining room, close to the windows, half hidden in the shadow where one of the lights above had gone dim. They were wearing a robe. That is the best way I can describe it. It looked rough and brown, almost like it was made from an old potato sack. The hood was pulled up over their head, covering most of their face. But not all of it. Under the hood, I could see a greasy chin, pale skin, and a thin neck beard that looked like it had been growing there without any plan. I tried not to stare, but it was hard. Every time I looked toward that corner, I felt like they were already looking at me. Then, for just a second, the light hit their glasses. The reflection shifted, and I saw their eyes behind the lenses. They looked tired and heavy, but not in a normal way. They looked slow, flat, and empty, like the eyes of someone who had spent years staring at screens in a dark room and had forgotten how to blink. They were locked on me. Before I could look away, the person lifted one finger and pushed their glasses higher on their nose. The glare from the lights covered their eyes again, and the face disappeared back into the hood. The rest of the shift dragged on. The restaurant slowly emptied as the night got later. The rush died down. The dining room grew quiet. Chairs were pushed in. Trays were cleared. My coworkers started cleaning. But the robed person stayed in the back booth. Eventually, my manager noticed them too. He walked over and asked if they were going to order anything or if they needed to leave. The person let out this long, annoyed sigh, like a spoiled kid being told to put away a toy. Then they slid out of the booth. They were taller than I expected. Not huge, but stiff. Awkward, their robe hung from their body in a way that made it hard to tell where their arms and legs really were. They walked toward the exit slowly, and the whole time, their hood stayed turned in my direction. I could not tell if they were breathing through their mouth or quietly growling. The sound was low and wet, and it followed them all the way to the door. When they finally stepped outside, I felt my shoulders loosen, like I had been holding my breath for 10 minutes. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself the messages had made me jumpy. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. After we finished closing and cleaning, I clocked out and walked to my car. The parking lot was almost empty. The lights above it buzzed and flickered. I got into my car, locked the doors, and just as I was about to start the engine, my phone vibrated. Another Reddit notification. My mouth went dry before I even opened it. The message said, "You've been found." I do not remember the drive home clearly. I remember checking my mirrors every few seconds. I remember taking turns too fast and then slowing down because I thought someone might pull me over. I remember feeling like every pair of headlights behind me belonged to that robed person. By the time I reached my apartment complex, I was sweating through my shirt. The building looked normal. Same parking lot. Same weak hallway lights. Same old stairs and thin walls. For a moment, I felt safe. I told myself I was home now. I told myself whoever had followed me, if anyone had followed me, could not get inside. I went up to my apartment, locked the door behind me, and stood there for a while, listening. Nothing. No footsteps. No voices. Just the low hum of the refrigerator and the quiet sounds of other people living in nearby apartments. I was finally starting to calm down. I kicked off my shoes, turned on the TV, and tried to convince myself that the whole thing was some strange prank. Then someone knocked. It was almost midnight. Nobody knocks at midnight unless something is wrong. I froze with the remote in my hand. The knock came again. 3 taps. Knock, knock, knock. Then a pause. Knock, knock, knock. Another pause. Knock, knock, knock. The rhythm made my skin crawl. It was too steady, too patient. I walked toward the door as quietly as I could. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. I leaned toward the people and looked out. It was the robed person from McDonald's. They were standing right outside my door, close enough that their hood filled most of the peephole. Their face was hidden in shadow, but I could see the lower half of their chin. I could see the shine of their glasses. Their fist rose and hit the door again. Knock, knock, knock. I stumbled back, almost falling over my own feet. Get away from my door. I shouted. My voice cracked, but I tried to sound strong. I'm armed, and I already called the police. The second I said it, my phone buzzed in my hand. A message appeared. We know you're not armed. Another buzz. We know you didn't call the police. Another, open the door. My legs went weak. The knocking started again. Knock, 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 knock. It went on and on. I do not know how long. It felt like hours. Maybe it was only 20 minutes. Maybe it was longer. Time stopped making sense. All I could do was stand there in the dark, holding my phone, watching the door shake with every hit. The door was cheap. I had always known that, but I had never really thought about it before. Now I could see it bend a little each time their fist landed. The plywood flexed inward like it was breathing. I wanted to call the police, but I was terrified they would hear me. I wanted to scream for my neighbors, but no one came out. Either they did not hear, or they heard and chose not to get involved. Then, as suddenly as it had started, the knocking stopped. The silence was almost worse. I stood there for a long time, waiting for the next knock. None came. Slowly, carefully, I moved toward the peephole again. I told myself not to look, but I had to know. The hallway was empty. The robed figure was gone. I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed with every light on, clutching a kitchen knife against my chest like it could protect me from whatever had found me. Every sound made me jump. Pipes in the wall, someone walking upstairs, a car passing outside. I kept checking my phone, but no new messages came. The next day was a nightmare. I went through the motions like a normal person, but I felt watched the whole time. At work, at the grocery store, in my car, walking up the stairs to my apartment. I kept seeing shapes in corners. I kept thinking I saw brown cloth moving behind windows. I checked over my shoulder so often that my neck started to hurt, but I never saw the robed person. By sunset, I started to think maybe it was over. Maybe they had only wanted to scare me. Maybe the moderators, or whoever they were, had decided I had learned my lesson. I locked my door, checked it twice, and tried to relax. I even laughed at myself a little. Not because it was funny, but because I needed it to be. That night, I got into bed. I was exhausted from fear. My eyes were heavy, and for the first time in almost 24 hours, I felt myself drifting towards sleep. Then the knocking started again. Knock, knock, knock. My whole body jolted. It felt like someone had poured ice water into my chest. Knock, knock, knock. I grabbed my phone. New messages were already coming in. Open the door. Let us in. You will pay, rule breaker. I did not want to look through the peephole. Every part of me screamed not to do it, but the not knowing was worse. I forced myself out of bed and moved toward the door. My hand was shaking so badly that I had to press it against the wall to steady myself. I leaned in. There were two of them now. The first robed figure stood close to the peephole, the same one from McDonald's. Beside them stood another figure, much larger. Massive, they filled almost the entire hallway. The robes stretched across their body, and their arms looked thick under the rough cloth. They had to be at least 350 pounds, maybe more. When they knocked, the whole door shuddered. I screamed at them to leave. I told them I would call the police. I told them I would scream until the whole building woke up. A message lit up my phone. We'll get in. Another, you will suffer. The larger one hit the door harder. The frame creaked. The lock rattled. Dust fell from the top of the doorframe. I backed away, holding the knife in both hands, knowing it would do almost nothing if they broke through. Just like the night before, the pounding went on for what felt like forever. Then it stopped. The hallway went silent. The next day, there was no sign of them. But at midnight, they came back. This time, there were three. The third one was thin and tall, with arms that seemed too long under the robe. All three knocked together in that same awful rhythm. Knock, 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 knock. My phone filled with messages. Rule breaker. Open the door. Confess. Accept your punishment. Then, they left. The next night, there were 4. The night after that, 5. Every 24 hours, they returned. Every time, another robed figure joined them. Some were short, some were wide, some breathed loudly, some stood perfectly still. One of them kept scratching at the door between knocks, dragging their nails along the wood like they were testing it. Another whispered things I could not understand, but every few seconds, I heard my username mixed in with the words. The moderators kept messaging me too. They told me exactly what they would do when they got inside. They described it in terrible detail. They said they would teach me the rules. They said they would make an example of me. They said my final post would be approved. I tried blocking them, but the messages kept coming. I tried deleting my account, but the page would not load. I tried calling the police, and this time, I really did. The line rang, then clicked, then filled with the sound of heavy breathing. After a few seconds, a voice whispered, "This is a moderator matter." Then the call ended. I have not left my apartment in 2 days. I pushed my couch against the door. Then my table. Then my dresser. It does not matter. The door is starting to crack. The frame is loose. The lock looks bent. Every knock pushes the whole pile of furniture back a little more. And now there are almost 10 of them outside. They are knocking as I type this. The door is bending in the middle. I can hear them breathing. I can hear cloth dragging against the hallway walls. My phone keeps buzzing, one message after another. Open, open, open. I do not know how much longer the door will hold. I do not know what happens when they get in. All I can do is wait, type, and hope someone reads this before they find a way through. And God help me, if they do break in, I hope their pimples are not contagious. Story 5. Every town has its own urban legend. Most of them are not very original. They usually fall into one of 2 types. The first is a ghost story about some sad woman or child from a long time ago. Someone who was treated badly and now comes back looking for revenge. The second is a story about a monster, some local thing that was never caught and still hides in the dark, waiting for people who are foolish enough to walk alone. Most of those stories start with one kid who wants attention. Maybe they watched too many scary movies. Maybe they wanted other kids to think they were special. Their stories are usually weak. Nobody else saw what they saw. The details change every time they tell it. If you ask even a few simple questions, the whole thing falls apart. The legend in our seaside town was different. Almost every kid who grew up there had heard about it. A lot of them had even seen something. It always happened the same way. If a child celebrated their 12th birthday on the beach, which was not rare in a town like ours, they might see it after sunset. Far out on the water, between the tall sea stacks near the lighthouse, lights would appear. Not just 1 or 2 lights, but hundreds of them. Bright colors, spinning rides, music, and the smell of food drifting across the waves. People called it the Atlantis Carnival. It looked like a floating amusement park rising from the ocean. Not a small traveling fair with a few cheap rides and broken game stalls, but a full carnival, bigger than anything our town could ever afford. There were roller coasters, a Ferris wheel, spinning rides, food stands, and in the very center, a huge red circus tent. That tent was always said to be the source of the sweet smells and the happy screams. Of course, I had heard the stories before my own birthday. My friends talked about it at school. They said we should go to the beach on my birthday night and wait for the lights. They told me it always appeared after sunset, right between the sharp rocks that rose from the ocean like teeth. I was about to turn 12, and I thought I was too old to believe in something that silly. Still, whenever we passed the shore, I caught myself looking toward the sea stacks. I told myself I was only curious, but a small part of me wanted to see it. I was a practical kid. I had to be. My dad was a beach-loving man who believed in too many conspiracy theories, and my younger sister, Olivia, was still waiting for her Hogwarts letter to arrive. Dad had once won what he called the Australian lottery, which meant workers' compensation. He had lost his right hand in an accident, and in return, he got enough money to keep us going and spend the rest of his life surfing whenever he could. We were not rich. We were not poor either. But money was always something we had to think about. Birthdays were one of the only times Dad let us do things that cost real money instead of using coupons or finding something free. On my 12th birthday, we spent most of the day playing mini-golf and wasting coins at the arcade. Dad called arcade machines pokies for kids, but he still gave us a handful of coins and let us play until we ran out. By the time we got on the bus to go home, I was tired, sticky from candy, and full of hot dogs. As we got close to our stop, I asked Dad if we could get off one stop early and walk home along the beach. Dad never said no to a beach detour, not even when it meant Olivia would miss the start of The Simpsons. We walked along the sand in the fading light. The ocean was calm, and the sky was turning purple and orange. I looked toward the sea stacks more times than I wanted to admit, but I saw nothing except water, rocks, and the lighthouse blinking in the distance. I was not surprised, not really, but I did feel a little disappointed. The rest of the night was normal. We went home, ate too much leftover birthday food, and watched cartoons from old tapes Dad had recorded from TV. By bedtime, I had almost forgotten about the carnival. Then I saw the lights. It was 11:45 at night when they woke me up. Thin lines of colored light slipped through the small gaps in my blinds and painted my bedroom walls. Red, blue, yellow, green, they moved slowly, like reflections from water, but stronger. My window had been left a little open because it was a warm summer night, and through that gap came the smell of hot dogs. Not old hot dogs, not the ones I had eaten earlier. These smelled fresh, warm, and perfect, like they had just come off a grill. I got out of bed and opened the blinds. There it was. Far across the water, half hidden by sea mist, the carnival glowed between the tall rocks. Its lights blinked and spun. I could see rides moving. I could hear music, faint and strange, carried over the ocean. Mixed with it were screams, but they sounded like the fun kind. The kind people make when a ride drops suddenly and their stomachs jump. I ran to Olivia's room and shook her shoulder. "Liv, wake up." She groaned and pulled her blanket tighter. "What are you doing? Didn't I see enough of you today? Do you smell that? Your breath?" The hot dogs. She lifted her head just a little, then dropped it back down. "Yeah, you ate a ton of them today. No wonder your breath smells like hot dogs." I pulled the sheets off her. "Come look." She grabbed the blanket back and buried herself under it. "Piss off, Kylie. I don't see your stupid lights, and all I smell is that sweaty shirt you never wash. Leave me alone. I had no plan to leave the house. I remember that clearly. I only wanted her to look out the window. But somehow, the next thing I knew, I was standing on the shore. I do not remember walking down the hallway. I do not remember opening the front door. I do not remember crossing the road or stepping onto the sand. I only woke up from whatever trance I was in when my toes touched the freezing ocean water. The cold shocked me awake. I looked down and saw the waves sliding around my feet. Then I looked out at the water. What was I doing? Was I really about to walk into the ocean? Was I going to try to swim to a carnival floating in the dark? Kylie. I turned around. Dad was running toward me across the sand. Dad? What the hell are you doing out here? He shouted. I looked back at the water, but the carnival was gone. No lights, no music, no smell of food, just dark waves and sea stacks standing in the moonlight. How did you know I was here? I asked. Liv saw you walk out, he said, breathing hard. You scared me half to death. This isn't like you. You're the responsible one. I did not know what to say. He looked toward the water, then back at me. Liv said something about a carnival. If you wanted to go to one, I would have taken you if I'd known about it. You're not sneaking out to meet some boy, are you? No, I said. It's not that. I don't remember leaving. Dad's face changed. He knelt in front of me and pressed the back of his hand against my forehead. He looked worried. Too many hot dogs, he said softly. But I could tell he did not fully believe it. Come on, let's get you home. He took my hand and led me away from the water. Just before we left the beach, I looked back one more time. For half a second, I swear I saw the shape of the carnival sinking beneath the ocean, its lights fading under the waves. After that night, I tried to forget about it. Sometimes the memory came back, but I told myself it had been a dream. A bad hot dog dream. That was easier than believing I had walked out of my house in my sleep because a ghost carnival had called me from the sea. Then I overheard Joe Sullivan talking about it. Joe was my childhood crush. He had freckles across his nose and cheeks, and the other boys called him Freckles, even though he hated it. One day at school, I heard him telling his friend Shane that the carnival was real. My brother's been there, Joe said. He took a group of his mates out on Dad's tinny. He said it only lasts 4 hours, but it has the best rides and the best food you'll ever have. And the best part is, it's all for you. There's no one else there. That's not true, I said before I could stop myself. Joe turned to me. How do you know? You said you didn't see it. I thought it was a dream, I admitted, but I did see it. And I heard people, too. They were screaming on the rides. Joe's face became serious. Did your brother really go there? I asked. Yeah, he said. Then why didn't you? He looked away. Shane jumped in before Joe could answer. He grabbed Joe in a headlock and laughed. Because he got scared. Tell them, Freckles. Joe shoved him off. His face was red, but his voice was quiet. I didn't see people. I only heard music. I almost got there. I paddled out on my longboard, and then I saw a man. What man? I asked. He was standing on the water, Joe said, maybe 100 meters away from the carnival. He was holding fairy floss and covered in streamers, but he was wearing old diving gear, like those huge metal suits with the round helmet. When he saw me, he sank straight down into the water, like I wasn't supposed to see him. Shane laughed and slapped Joe on the back. You're so full of it, you never went. Joe did not laugh. Then Shane said, guess we'll never know now. We're all 12 already. The thought came into my mind before I could stop it. My sister isn't, I said. She turns 12 next week. Joe looked at me. Really? Shane grinned. Then we take her. We all get to go. It did not take much to make Olivia believe me. She wanted the carnival to be real. She wanted magic in the world more than anyone I knew. I did not tell her about the man in the diving suit. That felt like a detail she did not need. Or maybe I was afraid she would refuse to go. On the night of December 1st, after Olivia's birthday dinner, we asked Dad if we could go for a dusk surf. He wanted to come with us, but I lied and said Joe and his mom would be there. Dad gave us his usual talk about sharks, strong currents, and not adding or subtracting from the population. Then he let us go. The weather was perfect. After sunset, the air stayed warm and heavy. There was no wind. The water was smooth as glass. Olivia and I sat on Dad's longboard near the shore and waited for Joe and Shane. Wasn't there supposed to be a storm tonight? Olivia asked. I looked up at the clear sky. Tonight? I don't think so. If we see any bad clouds, we'll come straight back. A few minutes later, Shane came running down the beach with his board under one arm. Joe followed behind him, holding a paddle and looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. Sorry for the holdup, ladies, Shane said. Had to drag Freckles here. He's scared the dive suit man won't share his fairy floss. Olivia looked at me. Dive suit man? Nothing, I said quickly. Just boys being stupid. Joe frowned. You didn't tell her? Should I have? Before he could answer, Olivia sat up straight. Do you smell that? We all lifted our faces and sniffed the air. I don't smell anything, Joe said. I did not either. Olivia's eyes were wide. Cinnamon and apple pie, like the one Mum used to make. Our mother had been dead for years. Then I saw the lights. There, I shouted. Between the sea stacks, the carnival appeared. It glowed in the dark like it had been waiting for us. The rides moved slowly against the night sky. Music drifted across the water, soft and sweet. I could hear screams, too, far away and muffled. Olivia whispered, "Holy shit." Shane was already running into the water with his longboard. What are we waiting for? We only have 4 hours. Joe hesitated for a moment, then followed him. Olivia grabbed my hand and pulled me forward. Come on. As we pushed our boards into the water, I quickly set my waterproof watch timer for 4 hours. We paddled toward the lights. It felt like we were paddling for hours, though I do not think it really took that long. The carnival looked far away at first, but then suddenly it was in front of us. A huge wooden platform floated on the water, holding rides, tents, game booths, and food stands. The whole thing should have been impossible. It should have been rocking with the waves, but it barely moved. Shane climbed up first and helped the rest of us onto the platform. Well, Olivia said, already smiling, what are we waiting for? She ran up the stairs toward the main level. Liv, wait, I called, chasing after her. At the top, she slowed down. I saw why. There was someone standing in front of us. At first, I thought another person had beaten us there. Then I realized it was not a person at all. It was a flat metal figure, like one of those cardboard cutouts of movie stars at a video store, except this one was made of rusted metal. A person had been painted on it, but badly. The shape was wrong. The colors were in almost the right places, but the body looked off, like the painter had only heard what a human looked like and had never seen one clearly. It had no eyes. The hands had too many fingers, or maybe not enough. It was hard to tell. Joe walked closer. What the hell is that? Behind the metal figure was an old speaker. It played a recording of voices, but the voices were wrong. They sounded almost like English, but not quite. The words bent in strange places. The rhythm was off, like someone had copied human speech without understanding it. Maybe it's Russian, Shane said. The whole carnival could have drifted out here from somewhere. Joe stared at him. Russia? Shane, you're not the dumbest kid alive, but you're definitely close. Aside from the strange metal people, the carnival looked amazing. The rides were clean and bright. The lights worked. The wooden boards looked polished. Nothing looked broken or old. Well, I said, trying to sound brave, the rides look fine. Should we try one? Roller coaster first, Shane said at once. Joe shook his head. Let's start with something safer. One of us should stay off and watch, just in case. He pointed to a teacup ride nearby. Shane groaned. I don't want to go on a little kid ride. Good, Olivia said. You can stay here and watch. She ran over and climbed into one of the cups. Joe and I followed. As soon as we sat down, the ride started by itself. Wait until we're ready, Shane. I called. I didn't touch anything, he shouted back. The teacups began to spin. At first, it was gentle. Olivia laughed, and Joe smiled a little. Then the ride got faster. The cup turned harder and harder until the lights around us became long streaks. Olivia grabbed my shirt. Kylie, can we get off? I feel sick. Shane, turn it off. I shouted. I'm trying, he yelled. Nothing's working. The ride spun faster. My stomach twisted. Olivia leaned over the side and threw up. A second later, I did too. Joe was shouting now, telling Shane to stop the ride, but Shane kept yelling that he could not. Then, without warning, the teacup jerked to a stop. The sudden stop almost threw us out. Joe stumbled out first, pale and shaking. Shane, for Christ's sake. He looked around. Shane? Shane was gone. We searched around the ride, calling his name. There was no answer. Maybe he went to get help, I said. Or food. Help, maybe, Joe said. He's an idiot, but he wouldn't just leave us. Olivia wiped her mouth and looked toward the center of the carnival. Let's follow the smell of food. Where there's food, there are people, right? We moved deeper into the park. Everything was spotless. Too spotless. There was no litter, no dust, no rust except on the metal standees. More of those fake painted people stood beside rides and stalls, each with a small speaker playing distorted speech. As we got closer to the red circus tent, the metal figures looked less rusty. Their paint looked fresher, almost wet. The big red tent stood in the center of the carnival, glowing softly from inside. The smell grew stronger. I smelled hot dogs. Joe said he smelled fairy floss. Olivia smelled cinnamon and apple pie. We stepped inside. A long buffet table stood in the middle of the tent. It was covered with food, hot dogs, pies, sweets, fairy floss, and other treats. Above the table was a banner. Happy birthday, Liv. Joe stared at it. What are the chances? I looked at the food. What are the chances they knew our favorite foods, too? Olivia barely seemed to hear us. She walked straight to the table. There's no cutlery, she said. Guess I'll be disgusting. She picked up a whole pie and took a huge bite. Her eyes rolled back, and she made a happy sound. It's exactly like Mum made it. A piece of the pie fell onto the floor. That was when I saw what was inside. It was not apple. It was not cinnamon. It was a gray, thick, pus-like substance. It moved slightly, pulsing as if it were alive. Stop eating that, I snapped. I slapped the pie from Olivia's hands. What the hell? She shouted. Then she saw the gray filling spreading across the floor, and her anger turned into horror. I'm going to throw up again, she whispered. Joe grabbed a hot dog from the table and tore off part of the bun. He threw it onto the floor. It landed with a wet splat. More gray slime spilled out. It's all made of that, he said. What is it? Olivia asked. I looked back at the pie on the floor, but it was gone. A fresh pie was sitting on the table again, steaming like it had just been baked. I grabbed the hot dog from Joe's hand and threw it onto the ground. Olivia whimpered. Is it poisoned? Just watch, I said. The ruined hot dog sat on the floor for a few seconds. Then it began to dissolve into the wooden boards, sinking into them like the floor was drinking it. I think we can skip the food, I said. Let's find Shane. We walked around the tent, searching for any sign of him. There were carnival games set up everywhere. Ring toss games, duck fishing games, games where you threw balls at clowns. But the clowns did not have open mouths. They just stared straight forward with flat, empty faces. That's creepy, I said. You think that's creepy? Joe said. Look at the prizes. I had not been looking at them. When I did, I wished I had not. Some of the stuffed animals were stretched into long worm-like shapes. Others looked like badly preserved rats dipped in bright paint. The writing on the show bags made no sense, and the plastic itself dripped the same gray slime as the food. Olivia looked at a pile of footballs. They were misshapen and had teeth where the laces should have been. That's sick, she said, but there was a strange excitement in her voice. Joe suddenly raised his arm to stop us. Wait, what? I asked. He pointed to the floor. Muddy footprints led into the Hall of Mirrors. Shane? Olivia asked. I looked closer. No, Shane's feet are smaller, and he wasn't wearing boots. But the prints are wet. Someone else is here. I started toward the entrance, then noticed Joe was not following. What's wrong? I asked. He would not look at me. For the first time, I saw real fear on his face. I think we should go back, he said. Shane is probably waiting by the boards. Olivia looked at him. You can wait here if you want. I took Joe's hand. We are not splitting up. What's more likely? That your dive suit man is walking around here without us seeing him? Or Shane found some boots and is trying to scare us? Joe swallowed. If he's not in there, he said, we go straight back. Promise? I promise. Olivia rolled her eyes. Get a room, you two. Are we doing this or not? We entered the Hall of Mirrors. At first, it seemed normal. The mirrors made us look tall, short, wide, and thin. Olivia ran ahead, laughing at her strange reflections. The sound echoed in all directions, making it hard to tell how far away she really was. Joe walked beside me. Hey, Kylie, he said. Yeah? Thanks for not calling me Freckles like everyone else. That's okay, I said. I know you hate it. He smiled nervously. I actually like your freckles, I added. You do? Yeah, he looked down, then back at me. If you're not busy tomorrow, do you want to go see Anaconda? I smiled despite everything. Yeah, that would be nice. Ahead of us, Olivia stopped. That's weird, she said. What? I walked up beside her. She was staring into a mirror. I don't have a reflection, she said. Maybe I'm a vampire. I looked into the mirror. Neither did I. Joe stepped beside us. He was not there either. It must be glass, I said. Maybe there's an identical room behind it. Then we heard glass shatter behind us. Shane? I called. Joe shouted, "This isn't funny, idiot." Another mirror smashed. Closer this time. We started moving away from the sound. At first, we walked fast. Then we ran. Every few seconds, another mirror shattered behind us. The sound grew louder and closer. Finally, we reached a fork with 3 paths. Each path had a neon sign above it that said exit. "They all say exit," Joe said, panic rising in his voice. "Where do we go?" The smashing came closer. Joe and Olivia started arguing about which way to turn. While they argued, I noticed something that made my blood go cold. The mirrors around us no longer reflected Olivia or Joe. They reflected only me. Then I saw a broken shard of mirror near my foot. It did not show my face. It showed a woman much older than me. She looked tired and sad, but her eyes were clear. She pointed toward the path on the right. Olivia looked behind us and screamed, "Kylie, that's not Shane." I grabbed them both. This way. We ran down the right path. The hallway twisted in a way that made my head spin. Lights flashed. Mirrors leaned at wrong angles. At the end, I saw daylight, or something like it, and we burst through. We were back at the entrance of the circus tent. But everything had changed. A violent storm was raging around us. Thunder shook the carnival. Lightning flashed so close that I could feel the hairs on my arms rise. Rain hammered the wooden boards. The sky, which had been clear minutes ago, was now black and furious. Joe looked around, his voice breaking. Where did this storm come from? And where did all the metal people go? The standees were gone. I grabbed Olivia by the shoulders. "Liv, did you see what was chasing us?" She tried not to cry. "Yeah." He looked like an astronaut, but all metal. He didn't walk right. Joe and I looked at each other. "The boards," he said. Now, we ran. We hoped Shane would be there waiting for us. We hoped this could still be fixed. Then thunder cracked, and every light in the carnival went out at once. Darkness swallowed everything. "I can't see," Olivia cried. "He's going to get me." We moved only when lightning flashed, using those bright seconds to find our way. During one flash, I saw the yellow teacup ride. During the next, the roller coaster lights turned on. Joe stopped. "There's someone on the roller coaster," he shouted. "It's Shane." He ran toward it. "Joe, wait!" I yelled. I followed him and let go of Olivia's hand. When we reached the gate, Shane was trapped in one of the carts. The safety bar was locked over his waist. He was fighting it, kicking and screaming. Then the cart shot forward. "Come on," Joe shouted. We ran beside the track as best we could. Shane flew through loops and drops, crying and begging to get off. The track led toward the edge of the platform, where the final drop disappeared into the ocean. At the top of that last drop, Shane screamed for his mom. Then the cart plunged into the black water. I jumped in after him. The cold hit me like a punch. I dove down, but I could not see Shane. I could hear screaming under the water, the same muffled screams I had heard from shore. They were not happy screams. They never had been. Lightning flashed above, and for 1 second, the ocean below lit up. That was when I saw the truth. The carnival was not a carnival. It was bait. The sea stacks were not rocks. They were teeth. Huge, ancient teeth rising from the mouth of something enormous beneath the water. The amusement park sat on a thick tendril, like a tongue stretched out to catch whatever climbed onto it. Far below, white eyes reflected the moonlight. The walls of the mouth looked like human faces pressed into flesh. I fought my way back to the surface. Joe was waiting and pulled me out. "Where's Shane?" he shouted. Where did he go? I gasped for air. Liv, where's Liv? I think she's at the boards. Come on. We ran again, though our bodies were exhausted. The boards beneath our feet were no longer hard wood. They were soft and sticky. My bare feet stuck to the ground, and every step felt like it might tear my skin away. Around us, the rides began to sink and deflate. The carnival was folding in on itself. Joe slipped and fell. The sticky floor grabbed him. I pulled him up as hard as I could. Some of his hair and skin stayed stuck to the ground. His cheek was torn, but he got his arm around my shoulders, and we kept moving. We could see our boards drifting in the water. Kylie, Joe said, "Don't look behind you. Just move faster." "I can't." "Please, he's close." I looked back. The dive suit man was running toward us. Sometimes he ran on two legs. Sometimes he dropped onto all fours. He moved like an octopus trapped inside a human-shaped suit. His heavy metal boots ripped the sticky ground apart with each step. He was only a few meters away when Joe was ripped from my side. The dive suit man grabbed him in a crushing hug. Then an air hose attached to the diver's back snapped tight and yanked them both backward into the collapsing carnival like they weighed nothing. I screamed, but there was no time. The platform tilted. The carnival began sinking into the sea. I jumped from the stairs into the water. Kylie, Olivia, was on the board, reaching for me. I swam to her and climbed on, then wrapped my arms around her. "Liv," I sobbed. "Where the hell were you?" She hugged me back. Then she whispered, "Wasn't it beautiful?" I froze. "What?" I tried to pull away, but Olivia was sticky. Her skin felt like the carnival floor. "Olivia," I said, "let go." "But you didn't even eat any of the food," she said softly. "And the rides are so much better down there. You'll love it." I struggled harder. That was when I saw the thin tendril attached to her back, trailing down into the water. "Mum's down there too," Olivia said. "Do you want to say hi?" "Mum's dead," I screamed. "And so are we," Shane said. He rose from the water beside the board, pale and dripping. Then Joe grabbed my leg and pulled himself up from the waves. Half his face was damaged, but he smiled at me. "We can be together down there," he said. "Boyfriend and girlfriend. You'd like that, wouldn't you? Let go of me." Something climbed onto the board behind me. Slimy arms wrapped around us. A wet, broken voice croaked near my ear. "Oh, my sweet Kylie." "It's all right. Mummy's here." I turned just enough to see her face. It was bloated, rotten, and wrong, but I knew it was my mother. I screamed as they grabbed handfuls of my skin and started pulling me into the water. Then my watch began to beep. 4 hours were up. Through the storm clouds, a beam of morning sunlight struck the water and the board. They all shrieked. Their bodies began to melt in the warm light. Olivia, Shane, Joe, and the thing wearing my mother's face let go of me and slipped back into the ocean. I lay on the board for hours after that. The current carried me farther and farther out to sea. A local fishing boat found me later that morning. By then, I could barely speak. I tried to tell the authorities what had happened. They did not believe me. They said a group of kids had gone out near the sea stacks during a storm. They said the rocks had collapsed. They said I had made up a story to survive the guilt and shock. Dad never went near the beach again after that. I had taken the one place that gave him peace. He still loved me, but something in him broke. Years later, smoking caught up with him. He never got to meet my son, Oliver. I live as far from the coast as I can now. Alice Springs. Dry land in every direction. I built a life here. I have a family. I do not travel. I do not go near the ocean. I do not even like swimming pools. When Oliver turned 12, we kept his birthday small and quiet. Cake at home. A few gifts, no beach, no trips, no big surprises. I promised him that when he turned 18, we would do something special. That night, I went to bed thinking we were safe. But sometime before midnight, I woke up. Colored lights were shining through my blinds, and the room smelled like hot dogs.